Good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar organized by SSS Europe. My name is Jia Xu. I'm a business coordinator at SSS Europe, and I'm responsible for Taiwan's chemical registration regulation and the preparation of Taiwan office. Today's webinar includes three parts. In the first 50 minutes, I will talk about the amendments on Taiwan's chemical regulation that published last year. The second part of today's presentation, Bianca will give us a brief update on Brexit. And then Siron will give us an update on Poison Central notification. This presentation will be closed with a Q&A session. You are welcome to write down your questions on the right column. Okay, let's start with Taiwan's chemical regulations. In the next 50 minutes, you will learn the latest update of the revised TCC-SCA, the Toxic and Concerned Chemical Substance Control Act, and the practical issues regarding registration, such as who should register and the scope of exemption. Then I will move on to registration timeline, type of registration fee, and annual report. To know how these changes will affect non-Taiwanese manufacturers, we also include a session on third-party representative and joint registration. This presentation will be closed with a Q&A session. If you have any question regarding Taiwan's chemical registration, please feel free to write down your questions during the presentation or later. Okay. The main chemical regulation law in Taiwan is the Toxic Chemical Substance Control Act. This act was implemented in 1986, and it has been revised 7 times over the past 30 years. The latest revision was January 2019, last year. The act was renamed into Toxic and Concerned Chemical Substance Control Act, TCC-SCA. And Taiwan's EPA also modified regulations on chemical registration. The competent authority in charge of chemical management in Taiwan is the EPA. The EPA established a branch office in 2016 called Toxic and Chemical Substance Bureau, TCSB, to take care of chemical substance registration and harmonization with international regulations on chemicals. From January 1st this year, the majority of articles in the TCC-SCA has been implemented. Three major changes are a clear timeline for Phase 1 registration and an announcement of 106 PEX priority existing chemicals for extended registration and an introduction of annual report. I will give more details of each of them later. Okay, so who should register? According to Taiwan's EPA, only Taiwanese manufacturers and importers have the responsibility to register. If companies due to confidential business information, they can appoint a third-party representative, TPR, to register. All manufactured or imported chemical substances need to be registered, except those listed in Article 4 in the Regulation of New and Existing Chemical Substance Registration. These include substances which occur in nature, inseparable intermediates from chemical reactions, articles, and etc. Items that are regulated by other regulations, such as pesticides, fertilizers, cosmetics, tobacco products, etc., are also exempted from chemical registration. According to the amended TCC-SCA in 2019, companies that manufacture or import existing chemical substances for more than 100 kilograms for the first time will need to register within 6 months from the date of import or manufacture. And this is called Phase 1 registration in Taiwan. Registrants of those who manufacture or import less than 100 kilograms are also allowed to register, and this was not possible before the amendment. After acquiring Phase 1 registration number, manufacturers or importers who have manufactured or import for more than 1 ton per year, and the manufacture or import chemicals happen to be listed in the 106 PEC list, then companies will need to do standard registration. There are two types of deadlines for standard registration, depending on when the company obtained Phase 1 registration number. If the company obtains Phase 1 registration number before 2020 and the manufactured or import amount is more than 1 ton but below 100 ton, then the deadline is by the end of 2022. If the tonnage is more than 100 ton, then the deadline is 2021, next year. If a company obtains Phase 1 registration number for the first time after 2020, and the manufactured or imported tonnage is more than 1 ton but before 100 ton, the deadline is 3 years from the second year of registration. Similarly, if the tonnage is more than 100 ton, then the deadline is within 2 years. In the table here, you can see some chemicals that is listed in the 106 PEC list. Now we have seen the deadlines for standard registration. So far, Taiwan's EPA only requires 106 chemical substance for standard registration. In the coming years, Taiwan's EPA plans to include more chemical substance in its PECs list, and this is currently in progress under the Challenge program. The standard registration is further divided into 4 categories: Level 1, Level 2, and 3 and 4, depending on the tonnage. Each level is corresponding to different data requirement in the dossiers. Now we will move on to the registration concerning new chemical substances. To know if a chemical substance is listed in Taiwan's inventory or not, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration has established an online platform called CSNN. One can use case number, Chinese name, or English name of a chemical substance to search in this online platform. Now I'll move on to new chemical substances. For new chemical substances, Taiwan's EPA has 3 categories for registration. They are small quantity registration for those less than 100 kg, simplified registration for those between 100 kg and 1 ton, and then standard registration for those manufactured or import for more than 1 ton. Similar to standard registration of existing chemical substances, here we also have level 1 to 4. For new chemical substances, the EPA has separate regulation if the substances is used for scientific research and development, or process-oriented research and development, or on-site isolated intermediates or polymer. This regulation also applies to polymer of low concern and CMR substances. The registration fee under TCCSCA is listed in this table. Phase 1 registration will cost about $3, and the standard registration will cost about $1,600. For new chemical substances, small quantity registration will cost about $66, and the simplified registration will cost about $660. The standard registration of new chemical substances is the same as the existing chemical substances. For small and medium enterprise, there are 25% discounts. The amendments of TCC/SCA also introduced annual report, and this applies to both existing chemical substances and new chemical substances. Registrants need to report quantity and type of chemical substances between April 1st and September 30 every year. Now I will talk about the roles of a TPR, third-party representative. As I mentioned earlier, only Taiwanese manufacturers or importers can register. Non-Taiwanese manufacturers cannot directly register. However, they can appoint a TPR to be on behalf of them. This appointment requires communication between foreign manufacturers and Taiwanese importers. TPR needs to have notarized or certified appointment letter from Taiwanese importers. To briefly summarize what a TPR can help you, first of all, TPR can coordinate with downstream users, which is Taiwanese importers in this case. Secondly, companies can apply for disclosure of CBI via TPR. Thirdly, TPR can also help with annual report. In the new regulation, companies that manufacture or import the same chemical substances can apply for joint registration. Joint registration is not compulsory under TCC/SCA. Companies can look for co-registrants via the online platform listed here. However, only companies that have done Phase 1 registration can join this platform. Registrants can jointly submit some chapter, yet data regarding dossier is mostly likely needed to be submitted by individual registrants. Okay, thank you for your attention. Now we will proceed to the QA session.